Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are with a CT engine with its Beetle style cylinders and cylinder heads. It has the advantage of a better oil cooler, it has an oil filter, and so on. Anyway, what we're doing is we're building this up with a set of standard dimension AA performance product pistons and cylinders, and so we've now got to the stage where the engine is basically being stripped and cleaned as far as I need it to go, because the engine was running before with plenty of oil pressure and good compression. What we're going to look at is the sump plug and also the cam followers. I've done many of these engines and I've done quite a few videos, but I'm going to try and address some of the specific questions. Right, okay, so number one question: can you get the cam followers out from the exterior of the engine? Because on a Beetle you have to split the case to get to the cam followers. Now in this case, with a strong magnet, you can pull cam follower straight out. Right, so we'll put that one back in because I've done all these and cleaned them up. All right. Okay. And now we're going to go over to the workbench and I'll show you what we're talking about. Right. Here sits sideways on the cam in the oil bath. Push rod goes into, and the oil that's pumped slowly through here goes through the push rod tube, comes out at the other end, and oils the rocker gear. Now then, how do you take one of these apart? Right, because you've got a little spring to get out of there, and if they're full of oil it won't budge. So here I have my little jig, which consists of an old 4-inch clamp, 100mm clamp, with a slot cut in the end here so that you can let the oil out and decompress. Then you see, you then wind down and you can then pull out the spring. Be careful to sort of hold it, because if it goes swing, you'll lose it. So here is one I disassembled earlier just to show you how they go. So when you're going to build one up, you see, all right, you'll be able to wind it down, insert your circlip and wind it out, and it will stop there like that. Okay, now what is inside? It's very simple. It's only a very simple device. Right, the cup, right, which as you can see has got little slots for oiling. Everything fills up with oil. Then you have the piston, and then you have the spring. Okay, and it's as simple as that, really. Right, reassembly. Put the piston, put the spring in its emplacement, turn it upside down, push it down, get it round the right way, obviously, and then you can wind it shut, right, and then put the circlets back in. This engine had a failure in the cylinder head to the point that the push rod dropped at one end, and so instead of being nicely in its place, it jumped around everywhere and has effectively smashed the edge of the tappet. Look, same with this one. See, it's got a notch in there. That means it's starting to break up. So, and so on. So that's what happened. That's why we're changing this for a good one. Right, when you inspect tappets or cam followers, whatever you want to call them, the machine surface has got to be spot on. No scratches, no nasties. Right, and these are done quite, already done a good mileage, and they're absolutely spot on. Look, you see, nice, shiny, good, and so on. However, now then, the question I get asked is, I want to fit solid cam followers. Don't know why, but there you go. Right, here is a solid cam follower. Same dimensions, look, same, and so on. There's nothing amazing about it. But it does mean that you have to check your valve clearances regularly. The engine is just subject to more wear. And look at this. This is an aftermarket, so I've got a few floating about. I don't use them. I find them more trouble than they're worth. But look at the damage on the surface. Look, I can see pits all over that. Pits there. It's got wet scratch marks where it's turned, So it hasn't been happy sitting in its bore. And if the rest of them were all like that, then so on. Right, so there we are. That is just about everything you need to know about hydraulic tappets. Now, what you can do is them and fill them up, but I don't bother. I put them in their existing state, turn the engine over a few times. When it's all built up, you spin the engine over a few times. Soon puts a bit of oil in. When you are setting the initial valve clearances, right, and you're going to have your twisting screw at this end, you've got the push rod tube, you're going, and I go contact plus 1/2 of one turn, 1/2 a turn initially, right, and then when you start the engine, it's going to clatter as the tappets fill up. It'll clatter for anything up to 20 minutes on tick over, so don't worry about it, and so on. Okay, I think that's what we need to know about the cam followers. Okay, so we've now got the sump plate off. Got your sump plate. Behind that you've got your filter, your gauze strainer, which obviously you clean out. This was pretty clean. I run a lot of these engines on diesel engine oil towards the end before they're going to be stripped, because then it really cleans the engine out. Usual story, despite the best efforts, there's always a couple of studs and so on. If you're happy, which don't unwind properly, happy, you can put them back in, it's no great problem. Make sure this nut is always well tightened up, because if not, the whole pickup plate floats about. Okay, there we are. Now this, having the drain nut in the middle, is an aftermarket one, because on the original CT there wasn't this, you just pulled it off. And as you can see, as I've pointed out before, and I'm going to do it again, is that these ones, they're thinner metal than the original. So what happens is they get a dint. Look, can you see? They're no longer flat. See, I can, oh, hang on. There. Can you see? So that's not going to help with the oil leaks. So what I do, take a little hammer and we just give it a dink. Just enough. How does that look now? That's better. Yes. Right. Give that a clean up and we can start to reassemble. Now, these are assembled dry. You don't use goop. Yeah, not bad. Some of these dry, and also please use the proper gaskets. This is from the Victor Reitz kit, and you can tell because it says Reitz all over it. It's thicker than the cheap ones. You know, the gasket set is more expensive, but how often do you want to be doing this job, you know? Now then, let's find point where it's happy to sit down. That looks like it. That'll do for our purposes. Yeah. Second gasket. Cover. Going to stay on there, it might do. New copper washers, and the copper washers, you don't get them in the cheap kits, so you have to buy them separately. That wants a copper washer. Just enough just to get everything started. New copper washers throughout. Take a cotton bud, clean the inside of the nut, because you're going to torque this down and you don't want of hydraulic locking with oil already in the thing to mess you about. And then this eventually gets torqued down to 8 Newton meters, which is not a lot, and you can, you know, do a nice job on it, you know, make it so that you do it like you were doing a cylinder head. You don't want oil leaking out all over the place. There we go. Then go around it a couple of times, because you are compressing gaskets and so on together. And then once the engine is back sat upright, you can always put some oil in, enough to cover the bottom of the sump, and you can leave it there to see if there are any leaks, because it would be better to find people an oil leak now once it's in the engine bay. There you go, that will do. So I'm now going to sit that upright and put some oil in, and then go and have some lunch. So the engine now round the right way up. Now we're going to pour lots of oil all over the place, let it all trickle down. A couple of cans of this. And that way If you've got a leaky sump, you're going to find out now. A small quantity of oil. This is just 1540 mineral diesel. It's good for cleaning out the engine. Right, and that's probably enough. Lunchtime.